Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversation with Calvin. We the species. I'm talking fast because there's a lot of stuff to do. Uh, Most importantly, I'm with Justin Mahwikizzi. I got it right. I got it right.
Sir,
Okay.
well done.
And Justin is in Chicago, and Justin is. I look at my notes because I can't even process all the stuff he's doing as a founder and financial executive, over 15 years experience, operating at the intersection. I love this: investment banking, foreign exchange, market structure, capital strategy, a ton of financial things of which I know nothing about. And when Justin and I got connected a couple of weeks ago, it was like instant. The light bulb went off. This would be perfect to discuss this stuff. Again, his journey. There's probably even a movie, Justin, to be made about your life, and we're going to talk a little bit about his book, a lot about his book, The Manufacturing of Poverty. I didn't know it can be manufactured. We're going to talk about that, and so many more things. Justin is in one of my favorite cities, one of my favorite cities in Chicago. I could talk about that. We've been talking actually for the last hour, just kind of getting acquainted. Well, I've been doing most of the talking, telling them all about my stuff, and I had an audience, and so I was saying a lot of stuff. But his journey is exemplary, and his commitment and his dedication. So, powerful stuff, poverty, powerful stuff, because it involves all of us. So my monologue is done. Justin, why don't you say a few words and then we will jump into our interview.
Thanks, Calvin. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to have a conversation. Like you said, I come from finance, and in about 2014 or so, I made a decision to leave and moonlight as a rideshare driver for Uber and Lyft in Chicago and research poverty. And over 8 years, I interviewed over 30,000 people and put together a book on the three pillars of what a family needs or person, a family, or community need to get themselves out of poverty, whether they were born in it or they found themselves in it through circumstances of life. So thank you so much.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, here we go. You made what made you actually leave traditional banking to study poverty from the ground level? What were the forces that made you
Sure.
do that?
I'm originally from a country called Burundi in East Africa, often ranked by the World Bank as the poorest country in the world, multiple years. But I've been in the States since 1997. And when you're in banking and you're an executive and you're going back and forth, you commute from the suburbs going into the city, from the city back to the suburbs taking the train per se. And so you never really get to see how people are living in the cities as well. And one day, I had to drive in because I had to go to the in the loop in Chicago for a negotiation over a contract. So I was in the courthouse. When I was in the hallway, I overheard a young attorney berate an older couple. The man was in a wheelchair and his wife was pushing him. And they had the look of a kid who just came to the principal's office and did something bad. The issue was over something like $1,200, but the attorney was threatening to take their family albums as part of their punishment for not being able to pay that bill. And I knew that that was an unethical move. And so I broke my negotiation, went towards them. I berated the attorney, told him that was unethical. You don't take family albums from people as a settlement for a debt. And I accompanied that couple into the courthouse when their case was called up. The young attorney told the judge that I was not an attorney. I was there trying to practice law without a license. I told the judge I'm there as a witness, not as a representative. I'm a witness for something unethical that just happened outside the courthouse. The attorney read the face in the room of the court and knew that he shouldn't proceed no further. So he asked the case to be dismissed. That couple walked away, went about their business. And on my way home, I stopped to get gas on the south side of Chicago, in one of the corners where I saw the same poverty as some of the worst places in Burundi growing up. And when I say poverty, it's not what you have or don't have. It's the look in your eyes. You've given up on life. You don't believe there's something better that could be done. And so I decided to leave banking and study this to try to figure out how two countries on different spectrums of wealth can produce the same type of results.
Wow. Wow. Potent stuff. Um, why do you call poverty something that's manufactured rather than accidental?
Correct. When you're in banking, and my background in finances, you got to understand operations and how an input results into an output. And so poverty is a result of a process that people go through, sometimes by design, by the system, but sometimes by the folks who are going through the system not understanding the rules and structures of the game they're playing. And so I usually tell folks that it's like you're trying to play basketball on a soccer field during a soccer game, and everybody's laughing at you because you're not playing by the rules and you don't understand the structure of the rules of the game that is supposed to be played. And when you get kicked out and everyone is laughing at you, you think that it's because of who you are. You're a woman, you're a man, you're short, you're black, you're white, you're an immigrant, you're not an immigrant. Versus no, there's a you got to understand the rules and the structure you're playing in, so you can understand how the it's not a game, how the process works, so that the output is what you initially thought was going to be, versus the output is a surprise, and often results into a lot of friction that separates families.
Okay. Okay. I like that analogy. I wrote it down. Playing basketball on a soccer field. It's brilliant. I like that.
The World Cup is coming, so it's good. It's fitting
Yeah,
too.
I like that. Yes, yes, yes. Um, After interviewing tens of thousands of people, what patterns shocked you the most?
How similar people are. No matter what your wealth status, your background, your ethnicity, we're all fighting the same categories. We're fighting debt. We're fighting providing for our families. We're fighting systems. We're fighting to just stay above water. Most from a spiritual perspective, even if you have an abundance of money, that doesn't mean you don't have problems. And so those themes that you struggle with, if you're in the audience, no matter what your background is, everyone else is struggling with it from a different perspective, but the same battles.
You talk about something called capital formation. Again, I know nothing about finance, but you talk about capital formation. What does capital formation mean to like ordinary families?
Yes. When people hear capital formation, they think of raising a lot of money, right? The Facebook story, the $3 billion you can raise. But to me, and in the book, the capital means the first thing it means is trust. Before money comes in, before money flows, before authority flows, before you're platform or not platformed, you have to be able to build trust between people you don't know. That means outside of your family, outside of your immediate community or neighborhood. And so you've got to be able to go and talk to strangers in different settings to learn about them, not make it about yourself, but try to learn about them so you can find ways to help them. And when you help them, no matter how small it is, whether it's directions you're giving somebody on the road, or helping somebody understand the process, if you know a specific bureaucracy that most people don't know, once you can help people do something small, those small wins turn into trust. And when there's trust, then money, then the banks come in because now you're no longer alone on your road. You actually build a bigger round table that financiers can see that it's not just one person with a dream. He's got support and they're willing to put their names behind them.
Okay. How come, I always wonder about this, how come so many people um, work so very, very, very hard, but they never really build um, real wealth?
Right. It's a misnomer. It's a misunderstanding of what wealth means. Making an income, working hard, um, going by the rules as they're set, your understanding of those rules are most likely will get you by. Um, but being able to accumulate assets, value that can produce generational wealth, that comes from stepping outside of your comfort zone to learn new ways of doing things. And it goes back to building trust, which to me is the number one capital thing you can. And if you're in a career or in a specific situation, but you're not getting ahead, you feel like you're not getting ahead, the rules seem to be stacked against you. It means that there's a person at the round table who's missing, who could give you the strategy you need based on what you are. And so the folks that explore outside of their circles and build new circles tend to build the wealth because the opportunities come in where that nobody else in their circle knows about. And usually, if you can bring a new opportunity in your circle, you'll benefit everybody else who's in your circle, and you build wealth together. And so that means it's a team sport. Wealth, unless you were born into it, if you're looking to build a team sport, and usually it means you have to go make new friends, learn different ideas, different ways of doing things, learn the ways they got their wealth. Sometimes it's as easy as going on a government portal and subscribing your company to their system so that you can get permission to bid on a contract. And that to some folks it's foreign. But the world is a bureaucracy. So you got to understand the processes you need to plug into to build that wealth that is beyond your daily job, because your daily job is there to get you by, not necessarily build wealth on top of it.
Okay. By the way, I filled up a whole page of notes already. You know, I told you I take notes.
Yes, sir.
I got a whole page. It's fascinating stuff. How can and I love this because I'm a small business fan, and I love to see small businesses opening up, you know, on the highway, a restaurant, this, that, and it actually pains me when I drive by. There was a little cute little restaurant opened up here, and it was there like a month or two and gone.
Yeah.
And the coffee shop opened up on a busy highway a month and gone, literally a month. And it to me it's so depressing because people put their life, their dreams, their hopes so much into this, and the dreams of America, the promise of America, and then, you know, gone. So how can small businesses survive often when it seems everything is stacked against them?
Yes. Um, here's the actual truth you just said. If you try to go it alone, if you try to get two or three partners, create your business, believe that's your story, and when you succeed, it's only going to be you platform, then the storyline. The system is stacked against you. The system rewards different parties coming together to do an activity. So if you're a small business, you're going to have vendors, people you buy from to provide that service. And then you're going to have people you sell into. Maybe it's a coffee you give to a customer. That's your team. That means you have to be part of that community you're in. You got to be part of the business association. You got to go to the mayor's, sometimes what seems to be boring presentations. You need to know who's who so they can help you and you can help them. And the biggest thing I learned is from people that I drove from China who were wealthy, people I drove from the Czech Republic who were refugees. They came when they came to the United States. Is how can you build trust first as a small business, and that means be helping your other small business owners who are in your community. How do you reduce your cost of doing business? You can buy together. You can come together and buy the same product that you're all are bringing into your business to provide for your clients. If you can reduce your cost, build friendships and trusts, your business will survive, because even when you hit hard times, those other small business owners will come to help you while you get back on your feet. And so I always say, do not be tribal. Always try to be a gatherer. Don't be a hunter. The person who gathers the most friends, the most trust circle, will win in the end, because life will always bring you problems, right? You'll have good months. You'll have very bad month. You may have a very bad quarter. And in that quarter, when you're about to go out of business, it's going to be those folks who you've helped and who know you who are going to come and help you bridge that gap to get past to the next thing. And so the biggest lesson in the whole book is, how do you build trust in yourself? How do you build trust around you and build more trust circles to help you get to where you're going?
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. You said something that was very profound. A lot of stuff is profound. Uh, build trust, reduce costs, buy together. And we didn't talk about it because there was no reason to talk about it before we went on air. But I was kind of the godfather of putting together buying groups when I was in the eyeglass business. And what is a buying group? Well, I long story, but and I knew the value and the power of this. All these small opticians and optometrists, competing with the likes of Pearl and lens crafters and all the buying power they had, and discounts in the eyewear business were structured. Obviously, the more you buy, the bigger discount you get, up to a maximum. And long story, but we can talk about it some other time. But I put together hundreds and then thousands of through third party. It was my concept
Yeah.
of small businesses to buy so that their buying power was the same as the big boys. And so what you said was so profound, to buy together, build trust. It's great stuff, Justin. It's great stuff because it's real. What you're talking about is real, and it works. Um, so moving on to a different flavor here. You've reinvented yourself multiple times. I like reinvention because I keep doing that too. Uh, in your words, in your world, what does reinvention look like to you? And what does it require psychologically?
So psychologically, and uh, different cultures have different ways of explaining it, but you have to be able to grieve your current identity. You got to grieve and let go, allow it to pass, so you can adopt your new identity towards your destiny. And that means that you have to appreciate who that person was, right? Because you're that identity, but you have to learn to grieve it, appreciate who you were, who you are, and allow yourself to become the next version of you, to improve yourself in the lot you have in your family's lot and your community's lot. Um, but mechanically, you have to. It really takes about 100 days of communicating what you're trying to do, who your new identity is, for people around you to actually start believing it. Often enough, people say, I will, first of the year, I will go to the gym all year, New Year resolution. Uh, but if you practice it for 100 days, it would actually become a reality for yourself and the people around you, and you'll start getting referrals about 100 days. But you got to invest your time on those 100 days. Reinvention requires that, the ability to know the process, but the ability to grieve and appreciate who you were and allow yourself to become that expanded personality or person you want to be.
Okay. Um, what's the biggest misconception people have about entrepreneurship? Is there a misconception?
There is, and uh, you you have to be an entrepreneur. You have to know that you're managing risks on yourself. You're taking agency over your life and the results that happens in your world. You're dealing with problems 24 hours 7, and your brain needs to allow yourself to know that that's the reality. You're solving problems on a continuous basis, but the more problems you solve, the easier it is to solve problems. So the beginning of entrepreneurship is extremely hard for someone who comes from the corporate world, where you're a W-2, or you're getting paid by hour. When you're an entrepreneur, that stops. You get paid by the structures and the scenarios you build that work out, and you got to go through 1,000 to find one that works. Ask Thomas Edison with the light bulb. And so you have to understand how to make decisions. That all decisions rests on you. And so it's a battle between you and yourself. You have to allow yourself to fail so you can learn quickly, so that you can integrate and make better decisions faster going forward. And if you're not an entrepreneur, you still make decisions for your family and your specific position, but the responsibilities, bandwidth of your brain are much lesser.
You said something again. It seems like everything you're talking about is really profound. So last week I interviewed a gentleman named Jim Mazziotti, whose talk was about failing forward, and you just said allow yourself to fail, and it's the same thing what he talked about, failing forward. So you are right, spot on, just stuff that I've been hearing. and allow yourself. That's a whole huge thing. Allow yourself to fail, which you just said. Um,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
it's like wow. Um, another curious question: how do you build a business when you don't really start with a lot of capital?
Yes. Um, you build relationships. And you're not building relationships in the sense that you want to go and tell people what you want to do and ask for their help. You want to find out what people are doing and see how you can help them. Um, and that again, that help, that action compounds. And if it compounds, it would result in someone probably knowing somebody else who has access to capital to bring that forth. But they have to trust you enough that they're on your team. And often enough, when you help people, they'll help you without even you asking. And so that's what I say in my book. But to get to that point, you have to learn how to get into that mindset, and then how to buy time long term to allow yourself that space to build relationships. And what we're doing here, you're reaching out to me and us collaborating on this. We're building trust amongst ourselves and see how we can help each other long term.
Okay, okay. Um, so you worked in investment banking and foreign exchange markets. What did that world teach you about power?
Yes, power, whether it's political, commercial, or otherwise, it's like electricity or a river. It flows. Money flows a specific direction based on however it's programmed by the governments of the world that says this is what we're allowed to take place. So you have to understand the flow of things. You got to understand how influence flows, how money flows, and how power flows. And once you understand those rules and structures, banking teaches you this is why specific projects get funded and others do not. It's not a judgment on you and your ability to do the business. It's a judgment on, do you understand where the global structures want the world to go? Because that's where the funding is going to go 90% of the time.
Okay, okay. Um, again, I know so little about this. I had to, I had a, it's like I had to take a course in order to interview you. You know, come to think of it, it was like a course. I had to, and I was never motivated to do, like I said, to do anything with finance. That's why I live on Social Security and it could be other things, but so be it. How much of modern finance is psychology versus mathematics? Um,
Modern finance is often about, I'd say, 75-25, 75% psychology, 25% mathematics. Because mathematics, that's the language of the world. The numbers are the numbers. But the psychology is why. It's understanding the why somebody's doing it or why somebody's funding it. And understanding people, understanding how they think through things is very important. In my book, I talk about the allegory of Plato's cave, but it teaches you how to have different perspectives from the same exact scenario, and being able to understand why somebody makes one decision or another allows you to say, do I have a service that person is going to buy based on their why? And so understanding why people make decisions, that's psychology and philosophy, that really is 75% of the game. The math will work itself out if the why is the right answer.
okay, moving along. I like this. We'll talk more about it in the next segment, but you build frontier market financial systems covering actually like 54 countries in Africa. Uh, what did you learn about global inequality? Hmm.
So inequality, I define inequality as um, mainstream describe it as the lack of opportunity, or opportunity is not given to a specific group or country or people or certain attributes. What I learned through interviewing over 30,000 people over 8 years is that we all have the benefit of being able to create opportunity. And in some countries, frontier markets, they're still um, on the mainstream thought that opportunity has to be given, rather than opportunity can be created, and new tables can be set up and new structures can be set up. And so, if you're always waiting for a permission to create opportunity, it's very hard for you as a country or as a group to proceed. And so, what I found in frontier markets is they're still in the psychology of waiting to get permission to improve, and that can slow you down long term.
Okay. I didn't forewarn you about this, but sometimes I like to go off topic, which I'm going to do now, just to take a deep breath, because
Let's
this
do
some
it.
of this is a little bit heavy. So here's a couple of off-topic things that I like. I borrowed some of this from one of my favorite journalists. So here goes. It's fun, and you don't even have to answer whatever. It could be a couple. So here's a scenario, Justin, excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with. Could be one, two, three, no rules.
Excluding family and friends.
Yes, excluding family, friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with.
Thurgood Marshall,
Uh,
ex-Supreme Court Justice. He's the attorney behind a Brown v. Board.
yep,
Uh, yeah, I would spend a whole month with that gentleman if
yep,
possible.
yep. I think more in time is going to come out about Thurgood Marshall in what he did, Brown v. Board of Education, which changed the whole. It was so, and of course, he went on to become first African American Chief Justice on the Supreme Court. Brilliant. He was just such a brilliant fighter, and I've watched so many documentaries on all of that, and as I told you before he went on air, that world was so important to me, and I don't think we even grasp the greatness of what he accomplished
Right.
with the times that he had to get that message out. It wasn't easy. So truly greatness there. Great answer. Great answer. Um,
I'll
another quick,
say, I have a follow-up real quick.
yes.
The second person would be his father, because what he did to raise him, Thurgood and his brother, is he would bring them in small claims court for evictions or debt court and make them sit there so they can absorb and understand how things work before they even grew up in who they were. And so that's a lesson in parenting as well.
Wow. Wow. Unbelievable. I never knew that. There needs to be much more done with his life. And this is just unbelievable. The fact that the father had that kind of vision,
Yes.
had that kind of vision to make a wow, to instill that. That's incredible. Wow. Um, Hopefully, time is a wonderful thing because these elements they'll come out and it should come out. And I mean, I never knew that, and I'm kind of on top of those things, but I never knew that. Wow. Um, do you have any favorite movies?
The Shawshank Redemption,
Oh,
Tim Robbins, Morgan Freeman,
yep.
classic.
Yep, correct. I watch that once a month, literally. That
Yes.
scene at the end of the movie when Ellis Red is
Yes.
walking on the beach and Tim Robbins, and they
On the
see each
boat.
other.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
and they
Yes.
see each other and they walk to each other, and then the movie ends. It's just so powerful, uh, truly powerful. I love that movie. And it's funny the warden. He plays. He's just such a great actor. I wanted to get a chance to meet him, Bob Gunton, because he plays such a nasty. But he did that in another role too. I think he played the dean, I think, of a medical school. It might have been a Robbins Williams movie, Patch Adams. I'm not sure, but he plays these villainous types so great. But anyway, okay, back to work. We'll talk a little bit about politics in Africa. Um, and my comment before I ask the question is I don't know a lot about that, but I do see Africa in my own little microcosmic world as being a continent that is so filled with natural resources and potential that stagger the imagination, what's there, and largely untouched, largely
Yes, still
untouched.
today.
Yeah, I mean, that's my very uneducated opinion of Africa, what's there, and the hope for mankind, because there's so much resources, so much opportunity there. Uh, uh, um, and you've spent years studying, systems globally. Um, how do you, Justin, see Africa's future economically?
Like anything else, there's two paths. Is very badly. The other one is very positive. But and this is not directed at obviously the folks in power and the power structures and governments. This is mostly directed at the individuals and their families and their communities. Is to leverage the brain power they already have collectively to find innovative ways, innovative services, and to build trust amongst themselves, village to village, commune to commune, because that's really what is impeding some of the progress. And so, if they can build trust across tribes, across clans, across communities, across countries, you will see a very robust economic growth that is not resting on debt. You do not need debt to grow. You do not need debt to build a business, but you need trust amongst the communities. And once that trust happens, then there's going to be economic flows, and the governments will benefit from it. But in this case, it's not from a top-down issue; it's a bottom-up issue. Just like a small community in Chicago, wherever you are. And so, what I see that's lacking in Africa, across countries, communities, is that basic trust. And if you can build that through small wins, small activities, it's going to compound into a bright future for the whole continent.
Okay. And I think it does have such enormous potential. What's there, the resources, my goodness. And I didn't realize there's a lot of people living on that continent. I read
Yeah,
it's
close to 2 billion people, I
that's
think.
right. I interviewed a young entrepreneur a couple years ago from Nigeria. He found me, and he was one of the most delightful young, and he was telling me his country, I think Nigeria is like 200 million people, something like that. And it
Yeah,
could, yeah, and it
yes,
complete.
that's right.
I said, "Are you kidding me?" I think a few million, but I didn't realize the huge population. I have to find that interview. I'll send you a link.
Sounds good.
He was he was a young kid, a teenager. And it's funny, when he contacted me, I thought he was like 30, 40 years old. And then we're starting to talk, and he's telling me, he's 17. And I
Wow.
felt like that. And he actually had the persona and the ambiance that I'm talking to somebody who's like 30 or 40 years old, which I told him is a real compliment, because he had such a grasp. He was so delightful. He was a little entrepreneur. It was a great interview.
I love to hear that.
Unexpected, but it was great. I have to look it up. I'll send you the link.
Sounds
Um,
good.
why do some nations, seem like they're trapped, and some nations, in general, accelerate really rapidly?
It depends what that nation's rules and structures look like, or at least where they think authority is being derived from. And I'll give you an example. Go back to Africa as well. It's a West African country. This lady wanted to start a business to manufacture a certain product that she had great knowledge, understanding, and the people around her community would need. She went to look for a loan, and the bank told her, I'm sorry, she went to look for a business license. And the mayor's office said she could not get a business license because that specific activity was prohibited. And she didn't understand it. Luckily, her brother in law was a lawyer, and they went and looked in the actual rules of that country or that city. And there was a law that was passed probably back in the colonial times that said that product can only be produced for export, not for local consumption.
Wow.
And that's why it was prohibited. And that's why for so long, nobody was trying to do it. And so they went and the lawyer talked to the mayor, they figured it out, and they qualified under the purpose of export. And it would be export to another country in Africa, not necessarily going to Europe, to allow them to get that license to do that activity. And so that's why I'm very big. The third section, a section of the book, The Manufacture of Poverty, is to look at the legal side, because if you don't understand the rules that you're working through, it's very easy to just feel like the system is against you. You have to have context and read the rules, read your constitution, read your local ordinances. It's boring, I know, but unless you really understand what the rules are allowed in this game, there's a lot of activity you won't pursue because you believe it's not allowed, and you don't know what the story is behind that.
Okay. Um, what global trends concern you right now? Are there any that concern you?
Yeah, yes, there's a lot, especially today. And typically, when there's whether it's in the commercial world, here's how I always say it: a conflict is um, a conflict is always commercial before it becomes political, and then once it becomes a political conflict, it's a political conflict before it becomes a war. And so, when you are in the war setting or kinetic issues, to truly understand what's happening, don't look at the political narratives on both sides. Try to figure out what the commercial issue is. And in today's world, with the advent of artificial intelligence and drone technology, a lot of technology is coming in, there's a lot of business disputes that are, for some reason or another, not being able to be settled on the political side, and they're spilling into kinetic warfare. And if we could, wherever you are, whether it's in a city or if you can try to understand if there's a conflict that's becoming violent, to try to figure out what the underlying business issue, commercial issue that's underlying the political conflict, you can try to find a solution. And today there's so many conflicts, but for some reason, the political structures and institutions are not able to solve them. And then they're spilling into violence. And that's what concerns me the most, is why our political organizations, structures, alliances, and different meetings, global books, meetings are not able to bring the parties to some kind of understanding. And that is the biggest danger that I see from a global perspective.
Okay. A couple of off-topic things as I'm listening to you, and maybe that's why I'm an interviewer. I think of these things. I'm listening to you, and you have such grasp and understanding and eloquence on these things. You're brilliant. Did you ever think about like going into politics and taking that knowledge you have? Um, um,
You
um,
know, yeah. um, have I thought about it? I come from a family that follows politics very closely and geopolitics, and my father raised me almost in the same sense of Thurgood's father, and so he taught me how to understand conflict and solve it. So my first instinct is to solve things on the commercial side. And that's why I do mergers and acquisitions and partner disputes. But if I can help on the political side, I don't see why I couldn't do that in the future. But for right now, is how do you help bring economic activity, reduce poverty and agency in those communities, so that they don't rely so much on politicians, because even in politics, the incentives change. And sometimes people go in with a good heart, and then next thing you know, the identity changes as well. And so finding solutions at the grassroots level is the best way to solve long-term issues, because politics can take a turn regardless what party you're in. Your guy goes in there, next thing you know, he or she just takes a left turn. And so solving problems at home is always better than
okay.
relying on somebody thousands of miles away.
Okay. No, I just that question I asked you was actually a compliment, because
Thank you. Yes.
really what was, and so you should know, in the 500 interviews I've done. By the way, this is really funny, Justin. Watch how I develop this. In the
Okay.
500 interviews I've done, I don't think I've ever mentioned that word, politics. I don't. No, no, I don't.
That's right. In your documents, you say you try to stay away from politics as much as you can.
Yep,
That's
I,
right.
I don't I don't touch it. I don't want to touch it. I don't even mention the word. But there's more important things to talk about, and it's basically people. Grassroots. You said that word a few times, grassroots. I like to talk to grassroots people, so I don't mention politics. But listening to you, and we've been together now a couple hours, and that's we can get a degree for that. We got enough time spent, we get a degree.
That's
Uh,
right.
just listen to you, the grasp that you have, and just your again, I said it again. Your eloquence. There's so many interesting ingredients. Anyway, so I just threw a compliment to you, and that's that. And the other
Thank you.
off-topic question, as an octogenarian, I now use 4 different AI programs daily, and I know the Pope just came out the other day, kind of against, and needs AI needs a lot more regulation and stuff. And I interviewed last week. I actually interviewed a builder
Oh,
of AI. He actually physically builds AI, and we had this wonderful discussion that went and I explained to him, and I told him that for an octogenarian, I'm using 4 of these programs. I signed up for 4, and I use it, and it's a big help to me.
yes.
So my question to you is, in on your world and the things that you do, how do you view AI in being able to make things better and help or not?
I think it improves a lot of things significantly. There are areas that AI is going to become very beneficial to humanity as a whole. Especially healthcare research, coming up with cures. But there's also, like anything else, right? It can be used for good or bad. And on the bad side, there's the same exact exponential opportunity for bad actors to use it for bad things, whether it's at the local level, whether it's at the international level. And so it's a matter for our global leaders to talk and figure out and put some guardrails, or at least put some definitions down. Because in business, if it's not illegal, if it's not clearly delineated as bad, people will do it because there's no rules against it. So thinking through and developing a good governance structure globally and internationally is good. On the positive side, AI is going to do tremendous good, but how it's integrated, how we train our kids to expect it, how we can view what is work in the future, what is the definition of work in the future, it's going to change, and it's going to take some time to get used to. I hope we have enough time to get used to it, because things are changing so fast that as soon as you get used to this thing, now you got to figure out the next thing.
Yeah,
Um, but it's an opportunity and a problem at the same time.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. I mentor students at Rutgers. And when I started my mentoring, when I was in college, we were taught the world changes. The world changes every 10 years. 10 years, there's another change, and that's back in the '60s. Now, as I talk to my students that I mentor, as the world is changing every 15 minutes, you know, and I believe that literally every 15 minutes. And you said something about cures. I just saw yesterday, and I had read it a month previous, that one of the nastiest cancers, pancreatic cancer, which is basically untreatable, is now they're doing some stuff with genetics and genes and this thing called KRAS, which I don't understand a lot, but and it's all a byproduct of AI, is now able to combat the pancreatic cancer, slow it down, and by people, usually a diagnosis, you're gone in a couple of months, but now maybe a year, so they're on the right track. It's AI.
It's
And
AI, and you can't knock that. That's
that's
progress.
good
That's
stuff.
positive.
That's
Yes,
wonderful stuff. It's
yes.
wonderful, wonderful stuff. People don't realize. I watched this movie back in the '60s called 2001, a Stanley Kubrick movie. Great movie. It's on my thing. I started watching it again just to because it's been a long time. But anyway, toward the end of the movie, the computer Hal wants to take over the. So that was the first battle between
Machine.
man and machine, and people don't realize AI ain't new. This stuff was going on back in the '60s.
That's
And,
right.
and Arthur Clarke, who wrote 2001, you started exploring that kind of stuff. So it's been around a long, long time that we've had to deal with. Anyway, moving on. I like this question, and I'm looking forward to your answer. One of the most provocative ideas, one of your most provocative ideas, is buying time through courts. What do you mean by that?
So in my research of the book, I drove many women, many men who, especially kids who were in the wrong side of the law. And I would try to go, when did this start? When did you make a decision to go in the streets and do X, Y, Z? At what age? They all say it was between the ages of, or at least the average is between the ages of 8 and 12. That's when uh, kids make a decision if they're going to be part of society or on the other side of society. And I kept asking why, and the common thread was their mother's lights were cut off, so they had to go because they couldn't watch their mother and their sister starve. They had to go and try to feed the family, and whatever is available for that kid in that community. That's when he started doing this. Or they said my parents divorced, and she saw how it tore her apart. She lost trust in mankind. She went out there and did whatever she had to do. And so I try to understand what's happening that these things are starting that early for these families. And it goes back to where my journey started, really in small claims court, where families are being drug out for eviction, debt, medical debt, education debt, whatever it is. They're being brought out in small claims, which is very busy, very bureaucratic. Judges are desensitized to what's actually happening to the families, and these families can't afford a lawyer, and they go to court and they lose on day one, or they never show to court because they're embarrassed of being there, and they lose for not showing up on the default judgment. And next thing you know, your earnings are being garnished, your whole plans are gone, the husband and wife are fighting, divorce happens, kids lose trust in mankind, and then they end up in the streets doing what they need to do. And so, in my third section of the book, buying time in court is understanding the basic rules and structures of small claims court so that these issues that usually lead to divorces can be reduced by letting the husband or the wife or the dad or the mom to know, hey, I just got fired. I'm not going to be able to pay rent. But if I go into eviction, there's a process, a basic process that's available publicly. So this is not, I'm not sharing something that's not public. You can file these 3 papers on a specific sequence and buy yourself 6 months to 8 months before you truly have to leave that place. And in those 6 months and 8 months, and the reduced anxiety might allow you to have the right interview, to get the right job, maybe even increase on your income that you had in the last job, so that in 6 to 8 months, you can go back to your landlord and say, hey, I can get back on. I solved the problem. Can we get this matter resolved without the kids being impacted? If you can solve that one thing, I think you're going to reduce violence, crime violence in these communities by a significant percentage because you're reducing anxiety and you're keeping families together. And that's all that a child needs between the ages of 8 and 12 to reduce that decision to do wrong.
Um, Another phrase that I pulled out, you talk about achievement mindset. What is that?
Sure. An achievement mindset is, it goes back to not being afraid to look like a fool in order to educate yourself. It's learning through failure because you know that the more information you gather, the feedback you gather allows you to achieve whatever your goal is. And so, most often, even in schools today or society, we push the miracle narrative. You know, somebody came up with an idea, they met this person at a coffee. Next thing you know, boom, you know, they're a billionaire, and that's not how life works. You have to have a curiosity and a framework of inquiry to gather data, integrate within how you make decisions faster, so you can achieve your goal. And in order to achieve your goal, you have these valleys you got to go through. And that's the achievement mindset I'm talking about, so that you don't give up so early. So you have that persistence, that determination to see it through. If you have that goal and it's aligned with you spiritually, with who you are and where you want to go.
Okay. Uh, in the world of poverty, what role, this is heavy, what role does dignity play in escaping poverty?
It's everything. Depending on how you define dignity, it's the ability. Um, you have to love yourself first. You have to trust yourself first, and recognize that you have that dignity to seek whatever you're trying to seek. And often enough, we tell ourselves these stories. I'm not good enough for this. I can't do this. Who am I to think that I can do X? But having dignity is knowing that you are a person that matters, but you can't matter to society until you matter to yourself. And if you matter to yourself, then you'll have the wherewithal to pursue something nobody around you has ever done, knowing that eventually you'll get there. But to have that dignity, the dignity from society, they have to see dignity in yourself. And you can tell if somebody believes they matter or not. And it's important we train our kids to believe that, to change some of the outcomes out there.
Okay. And that's a key thing too, the kids to bolster and strengthen the kids. It's funny, I auditioned for The Apprentice, and, Donald Trump's Apprentice, and long story, but it was it might have been the fifth or sixth season, and Randall Pinkett won,
Yes.
and he went to Rutgers. He's a Rutgers guy, and then he went off to Oxford and Harvard, and so he won. In the following year, Donald Trump said, they were getting, like, when they announced a tryout for The Apprentice, 10,000 people lined up in front of a building to try to try out for it. I mean, but they had an audition at Rutgers, and I found out about it for only 125 people,
Okay.
and I was number 124, and I found out about it, and uh, uh, they they sent me some questions to answer, to fill out my application, and I actually went to the audition. But two of the questions were actually, it was this question: what is your greatest achievement in academia and or business? And I saw that question, and I immediately knew the answer, because I really didn't have much of a track record in business. I told you I'm not a financial guy, but that was the question, and my answer to the essay, it was interesting because this pertains to what you just said, about children and raising children. My son was a sophomore at the time at Rider University, and he called me up. This was like a month or two before I wrote the essay. He called me up a month or two before, and he said, "Hey, Dad, what are you doing Saturday night?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Why don't you come down to the fraternity house and hang out with me and the guys?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to do that." And I hung up the phone, and I did it. And then I realized that my son, parenting was very important to me.
Yes.
And I spent my whole life trying to become a parent. And when I became a parent, it was very important to me, the give back, the raising, I mean, all the wonderful things, and how important it is, to take this thing up here and mold it and teach it and stuff. And the fact that he had so much confidence in me, wanting me, an
Yes.
older guy, to come down and hang out with him and the fraternity brothers, which I did, played beer pong for the first time. Uh, and now I have long
You
arms,
know,
so I cheat.
in the circles of parenthood and fatherhood, that's a lot of street cred when your kid calls you to go hang out with his buddies.
Correct,
So well
correct.
done.
That was
Absolutely.
my essay. That was my essay. I said
Okay.
my greatest achievement is my son asked me to hang out with him and the guys because I put things in perspective.
Yes.
Business, this, that, but parenting is the biggest business. the
It
greatest
is.
thing. And that was my essay. It's funny. I wrote about this. That was I don't know if they understood it at the Apprentice what that meant, but nevertheless, I had the opportunity. Long story, I won't get into it. Where my application could have been put on Donald's desk, and
Yes.
uh, but I found out that edition of The Apprentice, the losing team has to sleep in a tent in Los Angeles, and I had a rule, Justin. I don't sleep in tents, so I backed
It's a
out.
good rule. That's a good rule.
Yep, I don't sleep in tents. I backed out, and that was the end of my uh, apprentice thing. But it pertains to what you said about parenting and teaching. And that was such a great result for me. So, your work blends Plato and Anna Smith, of course, Thurgood Marshall, finance and um, street level observations. Why do philosophy and economics belong together? Philosophy, economics together.
Economics tells you what people do. Philosophy does two things. One, it tells you why people do what they do and what they should do. But philosophy it broadens the decision set that a person can make given a situation. And it's not yes or no. There's always a lot of maybes between the yes and the no. My daughter, I have a 4-year-old. I've taught her how to negotiate. So when she asks me to do an activity with her friends and I say no, she now says, but when it's 4, can I do it? 4 p.m. means her friends came back from school and they can hang out. And the answer is yes, then. But if she had not learned how to do that and I would just say no, that would have been the end of the conversation. So philosophy allows you to rationally go through things without the tension that can come from adversarial relationships.
Okay. Okay. Um, okay. Looking at America today, it's a little heavy too. What do you think is the real battle people are fighting for beneath the surface? Because there's a lot of battles going on here in America.
There's a lot of battles, and especially in America today, the average person doesn't necessarily believe they can shape their future. And if you don't believe you can shape your future and the leaders around you or society around you is not showing you how it can help shape your future, you feel lost. And that can lead to depression and anxiety into a lot of our young people, but at this point, a lot of our people. And so that's the real battle, and helping a person believe they matter uh, and believe they can shape their own future is important because it allows them to accept responsibility when things go wrong, but also take credit when things go right. And having that agency is everything wherever you are. And we don't have that being taught in schools anymore. I was lucky to go to a boarding school, Valley Forge Military Academy. My father sent me for 3 years there, and learning from retired military veterans was extremely beneficial for me because they expect you to have agency. They expect you to do what you're told or accept the responsibility if you don't do what you're told. And that's lacking in the average person today in society. And that's the underlying of a lot of issues politically, commercially, societal, that we've already explored, you and I.
Okay. By the way, Valley Forge Military Academy, in my readings, did I read right that our current president went there?
No,
No.
he went to New York Military Academy,
Okay. I
New
knew he
York
went to
State.
a military academy. It was
Um,
buried in my head.
yes, Governor Wes Moore of Maryland is a graduate of Valley Forge
Okay.
Military Academy,
Okay.
and
Okay.
so maybe in the future we may have a president who went to Valley Forge Military
Maybe.
Academy. We'll see.
Maybe. It was in my head. I knew he went to some kind of military academy. I
Yeah.
and I just took a wild guess. Um, to cover a couple of rapid questions as we kind of wind down. We are winding down. How would you describe poverty in one word?
It's going to be Success. It's not intuitive, but poverty is a result of a successful process that someone inadvertently went through, um, which means that you can also be successful to result in the same thing. So poverty um, should not be looked at a victimhood. It's not a victimhood issue. It's just you got to the end of a road that you inadvertently took. So
Okay.
success.
What would you say is the best business lesson you ever learned?
Ooh, that's a tough one, my friend.
That's a tough one. Then you can pass on that.
No, no, no. I'll answer it. I'll answer it. It was at my internship at Vanguard in the summer of 2004. Um, just like you, I like talking to people. So most of the internship I spent interviewing the executives, sent emails, and for some reason they were letting me have an hour with them. And the future CEO of Vanguard, Bill Buckley, uh, taught me a specific word I had never heard before. Actually, it's a two word, but it's core competency. And he actually went on the blackboard in his office and drew the thought process on how you can design a career based on your core competencies. And at that age, I learned that I like to talk to people and learn from executives and integrate that in my world. And so if you can figure out what your business's core competencies are versus your competition or yourself, what are your core competencies, you'll have a greater career or a greater business life than if you try to do it all. So core competency, courtesy of Vanguard's ex-chief executive officer, Tim Buckley, I'm sorry, Tim Buckley.
Okay. Okay. Last last question. By the way, we could we could go off now on a million different tangents to talk to you and before I even close, I'd love to invite you to come back and talk, and we can do panels. Hey, we can do anything. You know, I sit in this chair 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you are just so fascinating, with such a grasp and an understanding in the way you deliver, you know. I'm just loving this time that I'm spending
Thank
with
you
you.
so much. I
And
appreciate that coming from you.
yeah, and I really mean that. This and you also make me think. You know, I'm doing a lot of off-topic stuff because you're provocative, and you make me think, and you have a grasp, and your background is so important, and the things you talk about are so important because that is the ingredients that will make us a better species, and
I
it's
agree.
so necessary. Last thing, Justin, do you believe people can rewrite their destiny?
Yes. Yes. There's an old a quote by a French writer that says that you're going to meet your destiny on the road you took to better avoid it. Most of us, we know where spiritually where our destiny is, and it's so scary we try to avoid it. But in those decisions you make, it'll put you right on the road towards it. You can rewrite it if you learn how to believe in yourself that you matter, and remember it takes about 100 days to change how the world view you. So invest in that time and spiritually be there. But yes, you can and you will if you're aligned spiritually.
Boom. Well, this has been this has been great. My time with you has been great, illuminating, and I learned. And I'm looking 1, 2, 3 pages of notes. Thank you. So you put me to work.
Thank you, Calvin. This has
Yeah,
been an honor. Thank you so much.
truly, truly, Justin, this has been great, and you know, I am warmly and enthusiastically inviting you to come back in any shape, way, form. So thank you so much. And again, this is fascinating, really fascinating. And thank you. So I'm going to stop recording. Don't leave. We'll do a 2 minute wrap. Um, and and um, and I used to go to a restaurant in Chicago called a Pump Room. Is that still in existence?
No, I don't think so. Where do you know where it was? North,
Oh, I
south?
think it was in a hotel. It might have been on the north side. Fancy
Okay.
restaurant. And I had to gather together all my money I had in my pocket to take there.
Yeah.
A fancy restaurant. Anyway, thank you, Justin.
No, thank you. It's been an honor.
Thank you.